For those who seek the shadowed tales, this is the lore of the Ghoul, a creature born of ancient dread and whispered infamy. In the dim mists of the 7th century, when the world was a tapestry of pagan rites and the nascent glow of Christian faith, the Ghoul emerged from tales older than the hills themselves. Its origins lie in the sun-scorched sands of pre-Islamic Arabia, carried northward by traders and pilgrims until its name became a curse on the lips of those who dwelt near the dead. Neither vampire nor zombie, the Ghoul was a fiend apart, a monstrous scavenger, hungering for the flesh of the departed. For millennia, it had lurked in the margins of human death, feasting in catacombs, bloating itself amidst the carnage of fallen armies, and burrowing vile lairs beneath the earth with claws steeped in filth. In form, the Ghoul was a grotesque parody of man, a slumped bipedal thing oft crawling on all fours through the cramped tunnels and tombs it haunted. Its body might be gaunt and dog-like, or swollen with the gluttony of its grim repasts. Its skin grey as ash or pale as a shroud, stretched over flesh that gleamed rubbery, hairless or scaly to the touch. Its face ranged from near human to bestial, with eyes that glinted like wet stone and jaws lined with jagged, bone-crushing teeth. Claws, long and filth-tipped, tore through soil and casket alike, while its stench, a reek of rot and decay, could stagger the boldest soul. Some spoke of a paralyzing touch, a gift of its cursed nature, and all agreed its bite was death to the unwary. Unlike other man-eaters of legend, the Ghoul craved carrion above all, its body honed to plunder the dead. Yet it was no mere beast. Myth held that every Ghoul was once human, transformed by wickedness or the taboo of cannibalism. Whether rising from the grave or warped in life by their own debasement, these creatures bore the mark of divine retribution, their souls forever bound to their monstrous fate. Such was the Ghoul, an abomination born of sin, a terror to those who guarded the sanctity of the grave. Now, let us journey to the year of our Lord 608 to a windswept village in the land of the Gales, where a man named Colman faced this horror and wrought its end with fire and guile. The hamlet of Kilbrenn lay cradled by rolling moors and ancient oaks, its folk hardy souls who eked a living from the stubborn earth. Beside their timbered church stood a graveyard, its mossy stones and earthen mounds a silent chronicle of their king. Colman, a gravedigger of 40 winters, was its keeper. Tall and sinewy, with hands rough as the oak he wielded, he bore the weight of his duty with a quiet resolve. The dead were his charge, and he laid them to rest with care, whispering prayers as he tamped the soil. It was on a frost-rimed night, beneath a sky heavy with cloud, that Colman first sensed the violation. A grave he'd dug for young Elise, taken by fever, lay ravaged. The earth was clawed apart, the crude coffin shattered, and her body, God rest her, was gone, save for a few splintered bones strewn amidst the dirt. A chill gripped Colman, for no fox or hound could wreak such havoc. The next morn he found another grave despoiled, then another, the graveyard's peace unraveling like thread from a worn shroud. The villagers muttered of spirits, but Colman's keen eye saw the truth in the claw marks and the faint, sickly stench that lingered. For nights he kept vigil, his spade at hand until he beheld the culprit. Beneath a gnarled hawthorn, its roots clawing the earth, he spied a hunched figure, grey-skinned, its limbs scrambling as it tore into a fresh corpse. Its jaws snapped bone, its claws gleamed with grime, and the reek that wafted from it drove Colman to his knees. Gagging, a Ghoul he knew at once, a name dredged from tales, told by a wandering monk years past. This was no phantom, but a fleshly horror, a defiler of the dead he'd sworn to protect. Colman kept his counsel, for the villagers' faith was brittle, and panic would undo them. The burden was his alone. He watched the ghoul, noting its dusk-time prowls, its preference for the newly buried. His spade could not match its strength, nor his prayers banish its curse. But as he knelt one eve, the wind howling through the stones, a plan took root. The ghoul's hunger was its chain, perhaps it could be bound by it. He chose a spot near the hawthorn, where the soil was soft, and dug a pit deeper than any grave, its sides sheer and slick with clay. At its base, he piled dry branches and straw, then masked it with a thin crust of earth. From the church, he borrowed a worn shroud, wrapping it round a straw-stuffed sack to mimic a body, and laid it atop the trap. With flint and torch in hand, he crouched among the graves, his breath a ghost in the frigid air, and waited. The night deepened, the moon a sliver behind racing clouds. The ghoul emerged, its nostrils twitching as it scented the decoy. It shambled forward, claws scraping stone, and Colman's pulse thundered as it neared the pit. With a guttural croak, it lunged, and the ground collapsed. Down it tumbled, crashing into the tinder with a startled howl. Colman leapt up, striking flint to torch. Flame flared, and he cast it into the pit. The fire caught, roaring upward, and the ghoul's screeches rent the night as the blaze swallowed it whole. The stench of charred flesh rose, mingling with smoke, and Colman stood vigil until the cries ceased, and the pit glowed red with dying embers. Dawn painted the sky in hues of gold, revealing a graveyard still and whole. Colman filled the pit, burying the ghoul's ashes beneath a slab of stone he dragged from the moor. The villagers, rising to find their terror ended, praised their prayers and the mercy of God, ignorant of the deed done in the dark. Colman, leaning on his spade, bore the secret in silence, his hands still trembling from the night's work. He had faced the ghoul, not with might, but with wit, and cleansed the sacred ground. Thus ends the tale of Colman the Gravedigger, a humble man of the 7th century who met a horror of legend and cast it into flame. Let it echo through the ages, a testament to the quiet valor of those who stand watch over the dead, defying the shadows that gnaw at the edges of the world.